Hello everybody, my name is Gary Joel Shacker. I am the 2013-2014 president of the Commercial Industrial Broker Society of Long Island, commonly known as CIBS. In 2012, CIBS celebrated its 20th year anniversary. In 1992, four men with vision and nerve, Herb Agan, Paul Amoruso, Sam Rozzi, and Joe Logano, got together to create CIBS. Their goal was to provide a voice in commercial real estate on Long Island. Their goals were also to enhance the ethics, provide camaraderie, and also create resolutions for resolving conflict. In late 2012, then President David Panetta sat down with the four founding fathers and interviewed them. And what follows is a delightful, insightful, and introspective interview regarding the founding of CIBS and the early years of commercial real estate on Long Island. Congratulations to CIBS on 20 years. It's been a lot of work and a lot of fun for a lot of guys. And maybe 20 years from now, the current CIBS president will be sitting down, perhaps not in front of a video or maybe some more technologically enhanced device, but will be celebrating 40 years of CIBS. Enjoy and have a great night.
It is now 2012. I'm David Panetta. I'm the current president of CIBS, and we now have in our presence, we have Paul Amoruso, we have Sam Rozzi, we have Joe Logano, and we have Herb Agan. They were the four what did you want to call them?
Founding fathers.
Founding fathers, okay.
Isn't that it?
Very young founder.
The very, very young founding fathers. They're the founding fathers of CIBS. So we are taking this opportunity to talk to our founding fathers. We're now 20 years strong, long, or whatever we want to call it. But so the first question really is, what made each of you get into commercial real estate? So why don't we start with Paul?
Great. Thank you. Nice to be here with everyone. I first got into commercial real estate basically because I couldn't find a job in 1982. Graduated college and really decided I wanted to be a real estate developer, and soon got the great education, the fact that when you have no money, being a real estate developer doesn't work out so great. So the next best thing was to find someone who would give me a desk and a phone, and realized that if someone was not going to hire me, that I was going to figure it out myself. And I got involved to figure it out myself, and eventually I ended up buying some real estate. But it was the commercial brokerage business was probably the greatest endeavor I've ever gone into, because what you need to do to be successful in this business is so comprehensive and so involved that it brings so many different skills together, and when you hit it, it's a great feeling. When you don't make it, not as great, but along the way you meet some great people like these guys here, and you make a few bucks and you have some fun.
And where did you work initially when you were first became a broker?
First became a broker, I worked in Great Neck in about 1982, and Bond Street in Great Neck.
Oh, wow.
While these guys were all in that very big corporate real estate world, I was not in such a corporate real estate world, and put a couple, development real estate deals together, and then opened up my office in Jericho in 1985. And and that started that corporate world where I started meeting all these great guys and wrestling with everybody else in the business, and it was just a great time to get into the real estate business, the 1980s. My guys, do you remember those?
Unfortunately,
Those-
yes. It was
Well,
already-
by the way,
10 years.
a little nicer than it is today to start out.
You
in
think
the
so?
real estate business. I was looking at a chart recently, and it indicated that in 1984 there was about 3 million feet of new construction. 1985 there was about 2.8 million feet. 1986 there was about 2.9 million feet. 87 was 2 million feet, and since then, I think all of the 90s might have been 1 million square feet. And in this last run, from 2000 to 2010 was maybe another 1.5 million, about half of what they probably did in 1 year in the 80s. So, a lot of great things happened in those years. Don't be depressed. You just came back from Canyon Ranch.
No,
Why are you
but I'm still
There's some
depressed.
people that are really
The
depressed.
market's going. Okay, it's okay.
All right, and fresh from Canyon Ranch,
Oh,
Herb.
I'm
let's,
Herb Hagan. How you doing? How I got involved in this business? I was in law school, and I worked my first year as an intern, which you do when you're going to law school. And I was working for a defense negligence firm and smoking a pipe, because everybody smoked pipes in the defense negligence firm. And I was doing what you might not understand, but it was called subrogation cases for taxi cab accidents. And it was one of the most boring times in my life. And I met a girl, got married, and her brother owned Sutton in Town. And I went to work for Sutton in Town. And although there's been a lot of name changes, basically, unusually, I have been with the same firm since 1972, which is 40 years.
Yeah, wow.
And 40 years is a very long time. Different hair, but the same hair. Different person, but the same person. And that was basically it. But met great people, worked at a great business, loved the business, still love the business, still get excited by the business. Except for the people that are in the business. It's a great business, but that was my life and how I got to where I am today.
All right, Joe.
Well, for me, I didn't pick the real estate industry. I started out as an accounts payable clerk with Cushman & Wakefield. I have Herb beat by a year in 1971. So I just hit 41 years at C&W, believe it or not. And I was in the accounting business for a while, and a couple of the brokers said, you should get into brokerage, and it was a classic. I was married, had a couple of kids, and didn't have the guts, so to speak, to kind of make the leap into brokerage. But then I wound up doing that. A couple of names that these guys know, Ogie and Donnie, said, why don't you come out to Long Island to run the Long Island office, 1981. I did that. That's when I met these fellas. It's been great ever since. Unfortunately, we don't see each other as much as we used to. I remember one of the things I remember was going to Testarossa and having double pastas,
Double
right?
pasta.
A lot of bread.
Good point.
That's what we did on a fairly regular basis. So, it's been great for me as well. The real estate industry has been challenging. I did a couple of different things. I'm back in the city now. I miss Long Island. It was always my favorite job when I ran the Long Island office out of here. But it's been a great run. And after 41 years, I still love going to work every day.
Great. Sam?
Well, the depressing part is I've got you both beat by
I
a
know.
few.
I was waiting for you to say that.
So my career started, I came out of college and worked in the insurance industry for a couple of years, and then in January of 1969, went to work.
60s.
Yes, the 60s. Went to work with Island Realty. And I guess the reason I chose Island Realty is because they were going to give me a $25 more a week draw than this other firm I was speaking with. So, but the most interesting part was when I started in the industry, Island Realty was primarily known as an industrial firm at the time. And I got in my first day, I'll never forget, they put me at a desk and dropped about, I guess, 50 listings of office buildings. Said, "You're going to do office leasing?" And I said, I didn't know office leasing from industrial, from retail. It didn't really matter at the time. I just knew I wanted a career in the real estate industry. So just to give you an idea, there was 2 office buildings on Route 110 in Melville at the time.
Wow.
Dave Levine's building.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It was just farmland. So I guess I was one of the first individuals that just specialized in office leasing at the time, and that was 1969. And then 1973 we started D'Angelo Forrest Rossi, which ran from 1973 to 1988, and then started Corporate National Realty in 1988 till the present. So it's been a long journey, a fun journey, and as my fellow founding fathers have said, I guess the best part of the whole business is the people you meet and the opportunities that the real estate business presents itself with. And I says, again, the greatest joy probably is guys like Herb, Joe, and Paul, who had an opportunity to interact with over the last 43 years. And it's been a lot of fun.
Good. Well, that's great.
Hey, can I do some interjections since it's being edited?
Sure.
Sam, you know, Island Realty was really the first industrial brokerage company on Long Island.
Correct.
And many, many, many people in the industry now came out of Island Realty.
Yeah.
Who was in the office at that time? Was Bernie Marcus there? Howard Kerfist? Who was
Well, the 2 principals at the time were Howard Kerfist and Fred Niebuhr.
Oh, Freddie.
Right.
Bernie Marcus had just left, maybe 6 months before I joined the firm. And let's see, well, most of the Dom D'Angelo.
How can I get stuck still with Dom? That's what I want to know. You're gonna have
Excuse me,
that
this
out.
is on tape.
Right, I understand.
All right, a little
But he
respect.
wouldn't know he's not showing up.
Just send that clip to
Right,
Don.
right, yeah, exactly.
But most of the individuals that I work with are, I hate to say it, no longer with us. But
Really?
yeah, no, I can't. In fact, I can't recall any of them.
My father wasn't there at the time, was he?
No, he was not there at the time. I think he had already started Shaker Realty at the time. didn't he?
Okay, so it was right after that.
It was right after that. This is and
So your father was at Island?
Yeah. No, this is-
Everybody, I
this
think.
is-
Yeah, everyone.
Write them all,
This is
right?
my
Was
own knowledge.
Griner at
It was
Island?
there was Griner Maltz, Island
No,
Realty,
Penguin?
Penguin Realty.
Penguin.
That's who
Wow.
offered me $25
think I
less,
heard
buddy.
of
Who
Penguin
was
Realty.
Penguin?
Penguin, Joel Gersten, and I forget the other individual.
This is important because down the road I'm going to write a book about the Long Island real estate history. So I'm trying to garner all this stuff from what
Yeah,
guys-
I'm already
you guys
into
are still
chapter
around.
5 in my book, because I'm really close to the end. And that's
It was Joel, but it was primarily an industrial marketplace, and there really were no office buildings to speak of on Long Island at the time. It was
Maybe a little Garden City.
maybe
and
a little bit, but just really the boom in the office market started, in the early '70s with the Lake Success Quadrangle,
Right.
3000 Marcus Avenue, and then of course you got a smattering of buildings on 110 that started to develop. Crossways Park was not developed.
Of course, which wasn't.
Was not
Was
developed. at the
Huntington
time.
Quad?
Huntington
late
Quad
70s?
was
No.
yes, that was in it, but
That
there was no Huntington Quadrangle, and at the time it was very interesting. The Huntington Quadrangle had their own power generator at the time, and it was all raised floor, but it was and their whole one of their big marketing features was to take you down to the,
Right,
to,
the
remember
basement.
the basement
Show
with
you
the
the-
colored boilers
Right.
and
I remember
and
that.
all the Rolls Royce engines that powered the whole
Absolutely.
complex. So it was very interesting times. But really, there was and for someone to go to Route 110 in Melville was like to go to the end of the world.
Yes.
Sure.
Really,
Like going to Riverhead
It was
tonight.
like going to Riverhead today. Correct. And
That's right.
so what you found was the bulk of our activity was that
Nassau County.
Nassau Queens line.
Right.
And then the Lake Success Quadrant, 3000 Market.
And
And
you
that was the only building, 3000.
Those were the days when a company from New York City would actually come out to Lake Success or come out to Long Island and back office. It was a true back office, more
Exactly.
affordable option.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
But it was a more affordable option.
Yeah,
With
not
New
like
York
it is
City,
today.
it was like, okay, they're a
That
little
was
too-
the reason they were coming out?
Yeah.
And by the way, you read about that, right? Because you weren't here then.
No, it was not. That's right.
He was first gravitating to understand the real estate business. He was
I love
understanding
that.
it.
I love that.
All right, let's fast forward to 1992, and we'd like you to talk a little bit about what the landscape was when you guys were deciding to move forward with CIBS.
It was
It
a
was
disaster.
right.
It was 89 hit, and everybody talks about 2000 and 8. There's no difference. I mean, it was a real estate depression. It was terrible, and it started in 89. Statement basically was stay alive to 95. It was terrible, and I think the most important reason that we all got together, the brokerage community was looked at as a second
Stepchild.
It was a stepchild, and we all felt that it was very, very important for us to make a statement that the brokers in this community should be respected as part of a transaction, not just, the broker's here, or the attorney would make the comment, the broker's here, or the developer would try to cut you out of the, it was terrible.
There was, oh, I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead,
don't
no,
mean to
go
interrupt.
say it.
But I think one of the things
I
we
never
tried to
liked them.
model ourselves off of was the Real Estate Board of New York. And
Absolutely.
I mean, all four of us used to attend the Real Estate Board annual dinner in January and the
That's right.
black tie event. And, there was that interaction between the development community and the broker that we didn't have here on Long Island. And it was missed. There was a tremendous amount of lawsuits. We played what we call the coverage game, and you got guys in a car, you bring them to the developer and bring them to the next
Yeah.
developer, so you'd get coverage.
Well, not only that, but what was happening is we weren't meeting formally. There would be some meetings that would take place just to talk about what's going on and and there was no real organized meeting. But I will say that Eddie Blumenfeld was someone that helped
Yes.
sort of put us together, because our first meeting, I recall, was in Eddie's
Yes,
office.
That's correct.
And he recognized that there was a broad grassroots support of many, many brokers that I think helped the developers, quite frankly, with issues where they just didn't want to be looked upon as, okay, here's the elite, here's the 1%ers, here's the rest of our real estate industry, not the contractors per se, but all these vast brokers, and they should have a voice as well. And it really was quite an honor, I think, for the four of us to be recognized at that point in time as people that could lead the rest of our industry. And I would like to say, though, as far as the timing is concerned of 1992, we have to step back to the late 80s. The late 80s were a huge boom. So when the early 90s hit, the contrast was off a huge boom. It was a shelf that sort of fell off. And I'd say it was more like around 90. And then by 92, there was a groundswell of frustration, lack of representation, just overall malaise, and the CIBS thing, the whole CIBS concept became much more than representation. It began to really professionalize it on Long Island, like the Real Estate Board of New York was giving that same credibility in the city. And what's great is that with that momentum, many facets of CIBS have really developed.
I think one of the things we overlooked is the brokers never talked to other brokers at that time. And
Well, there
now-
was also
there was no dialogue. I mean, if we had a problem,
Yeah.
if we have a problem today, I'll call Herb, or
Yeah,
I'll call Joe, or I'll call Paul,
Right.
and it gets resolved.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, before CIBS, there wasn't that dialogue. And,
Yeah.
and everyone would just, start a lawsuit or.
Sure. And I remember when we started to meet, one of the things we said initially was that we had to bring the brokerage community together.
Right.
It was clear that it was anything but together.
Exactly.
And
You know,
okay, go ahead.
and not recognized by the developers, as a force. And the intention was to say, we need to come together as an industry and, get our act in order and do things, differently perhaps in dealing with one another and dealing with, ownership. And it started to come together, and I think Paul's right. The beautiful part about what we started was where it's come to today. It's amazing that you say we were four guys, and now how many members are you? About like 300?
350?
350
Never
today,
thought we'd
and
get
have
there.
with all kinds of programs and dinners. You raise money, fundraisers, and you're recognized as an organization that does wonderful things.
I don't think.
And it, oh,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, the thing about Eddie Blumenfeld, I remember the first meeting, and one of the things he wanted to do was to put us under the wing of ABLI.
That's right.
And we sat after the meeting and came to a decision among the four of us. We wanted our own independent voice.
That's right.
Because we felt that their agenda might be with ours, but their agenda at times would be in two different areas, and that we wanted to have our own voice. That was a critical part, and that really establishes independence. And everything everybody said here is really to make it so that we had a voice in the role of real estate, because it's not just brokerage disputes.
Right.
It was everything that was going on Long Island, and how we can make Long Island a better business community, not just for the brokerage community.
Yeah.
And we could be
Very
a
true.
voice
Yes.
rather than just an entity.
But the model really was the New York Real Estate Board. We
Right,
looked
that's
at it
what
and
we really
said,
tried.
that's what we need to be so that we could have
And that's
a real discussion.
Exactly.
That was the whole focus.
That
The
was it.
bylaws we created was based on the New York Real Estate Board. So if you don't
that's right.
like them, it's
We-
blame them.
we
But
just thought we were at a point in the Long Island's development and in the brokerage community where we should be an important voice in what had to be done, what should be done, and to make us better professionals. And I think we policed ourselves. We had a problem, we would go to each other, and I think that was probably the thing that, I benefited most.
and it was individual. We didn't make it as a. It wasn't with the Cushman and Wakefield at that time. Sutton and Edwards signed, or Corporate National.
Right.
You guys were in. Everybody was an individual member. That was really important, so that you had to really get involved as an individual. Because the brokerage community, when you get down to it, companies have policies, individuals make what goes on. So we really thought that was important, that everybody was an individual.
Now, at what point did it go from the four of you to where it started expanding out to the rest of the broader brokerage community?
I think that was always the intention. We
Yeah.
said we met to kind of start to frame it, and then we said now we've got to reach
Yeah,
out.
and we had to
the
sell to our
community and
individual
sell it-
offices.
Right, sell to our offices,
People
and
in
then
our-
go out to other firms as well.
I remember Don D'Angelo was the first president, correct?
Right.
I believe he was.
Was
yes.
he?
I don't
Was he the
remember.
first?
He doesn't remember.
I thought he was.
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. He
What
might
I
have
did
been.
though is, we made a decision, I think the first decision we made is the four of us would not be part of the board at the first
That's
time.
correct.
That we said, look, we founded it, you guys take it on from this point
Have to
forward,
run
because
with it.
we didn't wanna say, okay, it's our organization,
That's
it was
right.
really the brokerage organization. That was a big
Community.
thing.
That
too.
was,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Herb's absolutely correct on that.
Now, did you envision this to get you out of the depression of the 90s and then?
No.
No.
It had
No.
nothing to do with
The
the
market.
marketplace.
No.
It had everything to do with the industry.
So you saw
memory.
this. You always saw this as an ongoing
He looked it up.
Always,
organization.
I think we
Somebody
all
said it was.
thought of it as
Yeah.
a way to elevate the Long Island brokerage community and put us on the same level as the New York Real Estate Board.
That's
Right.
That's what we really modeled ourselves off of. I think.
And a lot of us did a lot of traveling. We saw other real estate communities. There was a bond between the real estate community of brokers, but developers and attorneys. It wasn't adversarial. They all looked to do business within that community, wherever that community was.
Yes, that's
If you were in Dallas, they all worked together. In Long Island, up until really ABLI and CIBS,
It was
we did not
adversarial.
work together. It was
It
adversarial.
definitely was adversarial.
And it was.
But in fairness, there were some
sorry.
parties back in those days who did not participate in CIBS that were engaging in real estate tactics that were not above board.
Yes.
So-
You're talking
Absolutely.
about other brokers? Or?
Yeah, there were individual
And still-
brokers. Back in the day, there was some really interesting, you know, a guy that would show up and say, today I'm your chauffeur, act like he's your chauffeur, and he's really showing you a building and registering you on that property.
Right.
There were tactics that went on that were not viewed in the professional manner that
I agree.
CIBS would.
Absolutely.
And it undercut the people in the industry that were really trying to do the right thing. And they needed to be exposed, and that was one aspect, but there were many aspects. But I think ABLI, let's not underestimate how ABLI needed a group like CIBS
I
as
agree.
well.
I
We,
agree.
we sit there and we say, well, it was good for us here, it was good for us there, but
Paul, why so?
well, because ABLI was out there, Des Ryan, and they were trying to move various legislation forward. They were trying to be a voice that opposed the NIMBYs. They were trying, it was in their best interest that it was more professional as well. They wanted some leadership that they could go to and say, hey, the industry is not doing this right. And by speaking to an organized group who represented the rest or the majority, not everybody participated in CIBS. Let's make a note of that as
We
well.
had 80 members that was the height. When you guys took it over, I mean, I don't think we ever hit more than 100, or maybe 120 members.
20, yeah.
Well, I remember.
Right.
I remember I was president back in 1998. So the budget was $30,000. So the budget is over $100,000
It
now.
is.
Yeah.
Wow.
And not to mention a lot of money given to charities. Gary, what kind of money's been given back to charities in the aggregate for all these years?
I couldn't tell you like.
It's hundreds of
exact
thousands of
amount,
dollars.
but It's a
Wonderful.
huge amount of money.
That's great.
Which is something that,
Six
you know, when we first started, I remember the first black tie event, Eddie Blumenfeld and the four of us were in a panic. Because we had guaranteed, I think, 250 people, and we said, if we don't know if we're gonna be able to make 250 people, if you don't, what do you do then? You know, you're gonna pay out money, you're not gonna be able to, you're gonna go bankrupt. And I think the first event had 350. We were, from that point
Overbooked.
on, overbooked, and then we had to start changing venues. But it was a big concern. We didn't have the idea of a charity organization.
Right.
We were really trying to be professional real estate
That
people.
didn't
Plus, we didn't have the money to cover it if
No,
we didn't get
absolutely.
the minimum.
That
Not
didn't
many.
really come until many years later.
Well, I don't think,
This year we netted from the event $90,000.
Really?
Both ABLI and CIBS, so $45,000 each.
I won't speak for
Speak for
all
us.
of us, but I think we all agree that none of us thought it would grow to the degree it has grown, and the various good things that you've been able to accomplish, you know, long after we passed the torch. So